Hi VC, welcome to another video. James here with you on this rather cold and chilly Friday afternoon. Got my woolly hat back on. Just a quick video today, quickish anyway, another instalment in my series Hunting X Through the Wild. You may have seen this before. The idea is that I kind of stumble into collecting a particular artist, maybe because I found one or two records and enjoyed them. I start to notice that it's not too difficult to find records by that artist, and gradually it's like, when you start to collect somebody almost by default, it just becomes easy to do it, so you carry on doing it. I've done two instalments of this so far. So far we've looked at Harry Nilsson, and I need to do an update on that one. We've looked at Graham Parker and The Rumour, and today we are going to look at the Big O, Roy Orbison. Now, a while ago I picked up this fantastic magazine. It's this series, the Collector's Edition. Really great series. This particular instalment, I mean, I've read it from cover to cover. It's very, very fine indeed. It takes you through Roy's whole career. You get this lovely picture here of all his original albums, many of which are very, very difficult to find in the wild. You never see them. I mean, it's quite easy to find Orbison compilation albums. It's not so easy to find his originals. Anyway, it takes you through his whole career. So this is the pre-Shades days, and I really enjoyed this magazine. It told the story in a really engaging way. It was full of interviews, full of profiles of the various musicians and people who he worked with. There's the Sun house band there. Roy was originally signed to Sun Records, more of which in a moment. I really enjoyed this. There's a fantastic section all about his influences, stuff I didn't know. I mean, you've got people like the country star Roy McCuff, who apparently was a huge influence on Roy. Lefty Frizzell, another country guy. Roy was really big on country music. Jimmy Rogers, a few other people. Let's have a look. Hank Williams, of course, and Elvis. Roy was from Texas. He had all that stuff in his blood. Western swing he was into. Chet Atkins. There's Bob Wills. There's one for Headley. Great magazine. I really enjoyed it. It reminded me how much I do enjoy Roy Orbison's music. He's somebody that I came to kind of in my early 20s, really. It was this album which first drew my attention to him during the Travelling Wilburys era. Jeff Lynne and Tom Petty are on this, I think. Great album. It was a comeback album for him shortly before he died, unfortunately. It contains the song You Got It. This is some kind of early pressing of this album. I've had this since 1987. Was that when it came out? And it's quite interesting because I'm not the world's biggest U2 fan, but this album contains the song Mystery Girl, which I just absolutely love. And that song really is a U2 song in all but name, because is it called Mystery Girl? Dream the real world. It's called She's a Mystery to Me. It's produced by Bono, and I think it's written by Bono as well. Fantastic song. So this was the album. It's just on the rather dull grey Virgin label. This was the album that first alerted me to Roy Orbison. I think prior to this, I hadn't really paid him much attention. I gradually started learning of his historical importance, the fact that the Beatles had really idolised him. Although apparently early in the career of the Beatles, apparently John Lennon had some kind of altercation with Roy Orbison, or was rude to him backstage. I can't remember the exact story, but certainly in later years, George Harrison and Jeff Lynne were both very keen to have Roy in the Wilburys. I think Jeff Lynne called him, the greatest singer of all time. He is sort of the Caruso of rock and roll, I always think. He had that kind of operatic quality to his voice. And I gradually started to learn more about him. You know, for example, that he was originally signed to Sun Records, and the stuff he did with Sun wasn't really tailored to his identity, but his identity hadn't really formed yet. You know, nobody knew. Sam Phillips didn't know what he had really when he signed Roy. Roy was doing kind of up-tempo, you know, rockabilly stuff, and I don't think people quite knew what to do with him. It was a little bit like when Aretha Franklin was signed to Columbia Records, and she made some sort of, you know, fairly middling records. It was only when she signed to Atlantic that they realised, or that, you know, she was able to fulfil her potential. And that's much the same with Roy. When he signed to the Monument label in the early 60s, that was when things really started to move for him. And we'll talk about those records in a minute. So, yeah, I really, you know, for years, all I've had in my collection really is comps, you know. So this one, Roy Orbison's Greatest Hits. Let's have a look. This is quite a nice one. It's got the Monument logo there. Sorry, I've got something in the way here, haven't I? Like that there. Running Scared, Crying, Only the Lonely, Dream Baby, Candyman. You know the songs. This is a label we don't see a great deal of in the VC. This record is somewhat dusty. Monument. So, yeah, I've had that one for a long time, and for a long time I thought of Roy Orbison as, you know, somebody that I would just have the greatest hits, because you don't see his records in the wild, like I said before. Whereas, you know, his best of albums are reasonably easy to find. Now this one is a bit of an interesting one, because I don't think it's mentioned in this magazine. Roy Orbison Sings. Jerry Lee Lewis and Timmy Rowe. Yeah, I haven't played this album for a long time. I'll Make It Up to You, Bonnie B, Louis Boogie, It Hurt Me So. This album, I bought this album in Leeds a long time ago. Let's see what we've got. It is somewhat tatty. My goodness, this record really does need a clean. Okay, so it's not just Roy, it's Roy Orbison, Jerry Lee Lewis and Tommy Rowe. It's on Allegro, and you can see there this record has been sorely neglected in my collection, I'm afraid to say, so I shall sort that one out. I shall make that a priority for this weekend. And since then I hadn't really thought of, you know, trying to update my Orbison collection, just because you never see his records, you know. And then blow me down, in the space of 1 week I found not one but two original mono Roy Orbison albums on the original Monument label, as distributed by London Records. The first one I found on the wall in my local Bernardo's store, and, you know, you could blink and miss it. I was going through the racks, just turning up the usual rubbish. I happened to look up, and it was just sat up on the wall. The price sticker, it was £8, which was substantially more than most of the records in that shop, because it's mostly just, you know, Cliff Richard and whatever, 50p. And when I took it to the counter, the girl behind the counter actually said to me, "Are you sure you want to buy this? Have you seen the price on it?" You know, and I said, "Yep, I definitely want it." This was Roy's first album on Monument. What an incredible cover that is, with a lovely picture of him on the back looking so handsome. It contains a mixture of originals and covers. You know, Roy was always a writer. He writes some songs on here with his collaborator Joe Melson, who was a band leader from Texas, an old friend of Roy's. Only the Lonely is the classic track from here by Orbison and Melson. There's also Blue Avenue by them, Come Back to Me My Love, Blue Angel, which is again a Melson Orbison. The song Raindrops, which is just by Melson. I'm Hurting, Orbison, Melson, and I'll Say It's My Fault by Roy Orbison and Fred Foster, who I think he was in charge of the label. He was the big guy at Monument. So that one, that was in really good condition. I mean, I was absolutely delighted with it, you know. And nice to see the London label, lovely purple Sounds great, you know. I was really pleased with that. I posted it on Facebook, and quite a few people said, you know, wow, what a catch. And it was a catch. It was on the wall, and you know, I could easily have missed it. Now the other one, actually, I had seen first. It was in my local Oxfam, and I'd left it there because there was a sticker on it saying, you know, surface marks and noise, and it was, I think it was on sale for something like £3.50 or £3.80. I'd left it there. When I bought the other one, I started thinking I really should go back for that other Roy album, because even if it doesn't play very well, I can put the cover on the wall, you know, push comes to shove. I think Doug mentioned that he had that first album on his wall, so I got thinking, well, you know, perhaps I could frame it. So I went back and I picked it up. This is, I believe, his third album, In Dreams. Then there's In Dreams by Orbison himself, which is, you know, Orbison's possibly most towering classic, and it's just one of those great songs. I think I saw an interview somewhere, it might have been with Bono, who pointed out that, you know, he was really original as a writer because he didn't often use verses and choruses. You know, In Dreams doesn't really have a verse or a chorus or a bridge. It just tells this little story. It kind of starts and finishes, but it takes you on this emotional journey, but he doesn't use any of the standard songwriting patterns or tropes. Very original in his way. This album is okay. It's got a little bit of filler on it, but it's got some good stuff. It's got a really nice version of All I Have to Do Is Dream, the more famous version, I suppose, being by the Everly Brothers. Lovely song called Lonely Wine as well. And so the condition on this album, I'd say it's probably, you know, good minus. There is some surface noise. I did clean it up. It's okay. If you listen to it on your speakers and you're doing something else, it's all right. If you sit down, put headphones on, the crackle starts to get a little bit annoying. But I was still pleased to get it. You never see Orbison in the wild, really, and these are original mono records from the 60s. Ultimately, I'm not going to leave those there unless they're, you know, in a very, very bad way. Now, okay, so the question is, am I going to continue collecting Orbison? Well, I will if I see him, you know, at a reasonable price and they're in reasonable condition. There are a lot of records, let me show you again, and according to this magazine, you know, not all of them are good. So I've got my work cut out, but I would, broadly speaking, say, you know, I'm a fan of the Big O. I love his voice, and these records just look gorgeous. And you know, I'm sorely tempted to dig deeper. It just remains to be seen how often I see these records, because I mean, these two are the only two original Orbison albums I think I've ever seen in the wild. So let's wait and see. Anyway, so that was the first instalment. Maybe there will be some more, but we'll see. Hunting Roy Orbison through the wild. Have a great weekend, folks, and I will catch you later. Bye.